The interior offensive line will be the strength of the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And on today's show, we're going to continue with our training camp previews, and we're going to look at the interior offensive line for the Cowboys. We talked about the tackles on Wednesday's show, so if you missed that, go check it out. But Landon, let's start with this group as a whole before we start to get into the individual players and the starters. It sure feels like on paper this is their best group, when it comes to the three starters, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Booker. It seems like they've got the best depth of any position. They've got multiple guys they feel really good about. They need this to be their strongest strength.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it kind of goes back to the conversation about the commitment to establishing the run a little bit more, to getting the run game going a little bit better. And I think having that interior trio that they have with, and specifically, all kind of bigger for their position, all kind of stronger guys. It sets a really strong pocket, for a quarterback who likes to step up in the pocket, but it also is something that is going to be at the tip of the spear for the run game, and it's going to really kind of lay the law down, and hopefully, set the tone in a lot of ways for what the offense wants to do in a game up front. So I was, I heard someone talk on a podcast today. I think it was the Yahoo podcast, or one of those, but they were talking about how, the investment in the interior trio also makes a quarterback feel more comfortable running play action, right? Being able to turn your back to the offensive line and to the defensive line when you have a solid trio up front kind of helps promote that. And we talked about that not too long ago when we talked about, quarterbacks. Is Dak going to get the ball more under center? Is he going to turn his back to the defense and play action, that sort of thing? So I think in a myriad of different ways, the interior trio is going to be a real boost for this offense, and it's going to set the tone for what is to come this season.
All right, so let's focus on the starters. So as of right now, the projection is Tyler Smith at left guard, Cooper Beebe at center, Tyler Booker at right guard. I would be shocked if it's any other combination going in week one, barring injury. But I want to start with Tyler Smith because this will be the third year for Tyler Smith playing left guard. His fourth in the NFL. I believe he's only 24 years old. He's still incredibly young. But now he's the second most tenured guy on this offensive line. What do we expect from Tyler Smith kind of going into year four?
I mean, I think he's been kind of teetering and right just around all pro for the last, season and a half, you'd say. So I think that's the kind of the bar at this point. I think you've seen him grow more and more. And as he's gotten an opportunity to just kind of focus in on at left guard, I think it's provided more and more path for him to grow. And I think, where his growth is going to come from is just increased hand technique and better hand technique. Because again, that still is an issue at times where his hands will get too far wide, but he has the requisite strength for the position. He has the correct attitude. He's clearly a star in the making. And I think you could see that early on that he was going to be a guy that, left tackle, left guard, he was going to succeed. I think it's kind of crazy to say, but at this point, Tyler Smith is probably the leader of that offensive line. I mean, he's the premium player, and I think that he's had no problem kind of stepping up and speaking for that group. And I think in a lot of great ways, he sets a real strong tone for the kind of work ethic that has been traditional in the Cowboys offensive line pass.
Yeah, and if you read that article from CBS Sports, where Duke Manyweather was talking about what he's working on with Tyler Smith, it's getting off the ball just a little bit quicker so he can have some more power and more leverage. I can't imagine how much better he's going to be if he's able to fix that and become even just a fractionally better off the line of scrimmage. He's already one of the strongest players in the league. I'm so excited to see what he looks like. He's still so incredibly young. I still think his best football is ahead of him. Let's go to Cooper Beebe, who I think of all the offensive linemen on this team, I'm expecting Beebe to take the biggest jump this year for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is his first full season at center. Like he had all off season to get ready. He played it last year, but now he's got a full year to prepare. He can go back and look at all of his reps from last year. I think the experience alone is going to help. I also think bringing in Connor Riley, his former offensive coordinator, to be the offensive line coach, I think that's certainly going to help. And just generally, these guys that are moving positions, they take a year or two to get up to speed. I think Beebe's going to have a monster year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look around at guys that have been set up the most to kind of a big leap between 1 and 2, I think BB's at the top of that list, right? I mean, especially in this team, right? Because you talked about it, like he's getting a familiar coach coming in to coach him. He's a year under his belt, and he got a lot of experience playing center last year as well. So he's one of the bigger centers that you're going to see in the league. He's a bigger, stronger guy, and I think that's it's a little bit daunting sometimes to kind of move into the pivot where you're asked to move, and there's a lot of quickness aspects going into it, especially when you're talking about like getting your offhand up quick enough and getting your snap hand up quick enough. It's a lot to transition to just going from a guard to an NFL guard because of the quickness change. Now imagine having to be responsible for snapping the ball as well and having to learn that. So having another year after having done it in the NFL, he's seen the speed of all of it. He understands what the standard is now. I agree. I think everything is pointing towards Cooper Beebe having a really big leap this year.
There was a quote from Duke Manyweather, the offensive line guru, in that CBS piece where he said, in regards to Cooper Beebe, he said, honestly, he was moved to center after the draft, and he didn't have any detailed coaching or development in season helping him make that transition. All right, Landon, let's talk about the new additions the Cowboys made to the interior offensive line this offseason, including Tyler Booker, the number 12 pick. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We absolutely love FanDuel around here. And with summer sports in full swing, there's always something to bet on. And whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even just a little bit more exciting. You're already watching the action. Why not just make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are at the beach getting sunburned. I love looking at some of the upcoming golf lines. We've got some big tournaments coming up. We've got baseball every single day. And of course, the NFL just around the corner with a preseason game later this month. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are discussing the Cowboys' interior offensive line going into the 2025 season. And let's talk about Tyler Booker. The Cowboys drafted a guard at number 12, which is still... Anyways,
stuck in your craw.
Yeah, it's whatever. I'm over it now, kind of. Let's talk about what do you expect from Tyler Booker here in year one?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think one of the reasons that you took a guard at 12 is because you felt like this is a guy that could come in right away and play some positive football for you. I think we had kind of just sort of penciled in with maybe mechanical pencil or whatever's between pencil and pen. Brock Hoffman as the potential starter at right guard, or with TJ Bass potentially, getting some time in there as well. And I think that the fact that you get a guy like this who could come in and just raise the floor and the ceiling at the position, really make the interior trio now a strength of this team. And a guy that, I think by all respects we've heard is extremely professional, is going to fit right into the culture that the Cowboys have, if not accentuate the culture with his, kind of tenacity and his way of attacking things. I think he really provides a great kind of emotional counterbalance to Tyler Smith, right? Because Tyler Smith is very laid back. I mean, he's the leader of this team, but he is also kind of a little bit laid back. Whereas I feel like Tyler Booker is really intense. And I think that,
I mean, you saw him shove that kid in that one drill. I mean, it's exactly what I want from my
pretty
guard.
intense. Exactly. That's what I want. Right. And so I think, and competing, right? Just competing. Like, you had to get out there and compete. I just think that, he fits in the kind of yin yang of personality, but then he also is a really great fit for what the Cowboys are trying to do schematically in the run game. He's a really great fit with the other guard and center that you have. I just think it really kind of, when it got suggested, it really kind of all lined up. And I definitely remember watching him the first time and thinking, man, the Cowboys it'd be a really great fit for him. But at the time, we didn't really think, well, I didn't think he was going to make it to us in the second round, honestly. So I mean, I think he clearly was one of those guys who was ranked in that kind of no man's land between our two picks. But again, the fit, everything about this pick, just like really, except for the value, except for the fact that you're drafting a guard at 12. I get that. But everything else about this pick really, really felt right. And it helped kind of click a lot of things in place about the Cowboys' offense and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, we spoke with Joseph Hoyt from the Dallas Morning News on Thursday, and one of his biggest takeaways from that show was, or going to the practices, is that Tyler Booker just looks like an NFL guard. Even the way that he's handling the bag drills and just the way you physically see him on the field, he looks like an NFL guard. So, listen, he's going to struggle with some speed early on. It's going to take him some time to get adjusted to the NFL, especially with some of the teams they play right off the bat, Philadelphia, New York. Like, they're going to play some awesome interior defensive lines. But I expect him, and honestly, the Cowboys need him to be an above average guard right away.
IMG Academy. Then he went to Alabama. Like, this guy is literally as well trained as you possibly could be and to be an NFL player. So you're absolutely right. Like, it's a very difficult transition, but if there is someone who's going to, make that curve not so steep, it's going to be someone who's been down the path that Tyler Booker has, who has the mentality that Tyler Booker has. So he's being thrown in the lion's den. There's absolutely zero doubt about that. But he's also about as well trained as you can be to survive that.
I think Tyler Booker played in that Bishop Sycamore game.
He did.
On ESPN.
I think I saw that. They definitely played. I don't know if he played in that game or not, but he was definitely there that year for sure.
Can you imagine Tyler Booker as like an 18-year-old in high school who was 320 pounds playing up? Never mind. It's a long story. Let's talk about some of the, I know. Let's talk about some of the other interior offensive linemen here. Some of the new additions. I want to talk about Robert Jones. There was a really good piece for Brandon Thorne over at Trench Warfare a couple of weeks ago talking about Robert Jones. And he was one of the players that he's kind of always liked a little bit. Just a big body, strong guard who was always a poor fit in Miami's wide zone blocking scheme. But he comes over with a lot of experience. And I have to assume he's going to be like the primary backup guard for the Cowboys this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you didn't draft Tyler Booker, I think you're looking at a guy who was probably going to end up being maybe your starting right guard, or at least wasn't going to be in competition. I think
was going to compete with Hoffman for that spot, right?
Yeah. So, and I think because Hoffman's probably feeling the inverse of what Robert Jones was dealing with, right? Where his team changed schemes and now he may not be as good a fit, at least at guard. So I think, Robert Jones comes over. It was a guy that, he's a little bit more plodding, a little bit of a bigger, stronger guy, not necessarily the kind of perfect fit that Mike McDaniel was looking for his kind of high flying wide zone. Let's get on the hoof and shield some guys off kind of run game. But Miami was desperate. They needed offensive line help, someone to get in there that were competent. And Robert Jones was at least that, right? He was at least a competent starting offensive lineman, even if he wasn't a great fit for what they were doing specifically. He is a better fit for what the Cowboys are doing. And I don't necessarily think he's going to push Tyler Booker, but I think having him on the team is just another reliable body who you feel like is a good fit for what you're trying to do, and you don't feel maybe as compromised as you might if you're putting in a 307-pound guard who needs to move guys off the ball. So I think in hindsight, it wasn't a wasted signing by any stretch of the imagination, because I think you feel good about their depth, obviously. But I'm sure Robert Jones feels a little bit slighted that he's kind of going into a different kind of situation than he expected.
Yeah, and maybe he always thought he was going to be a backup. And honestly, when you sign a 1-year deal on the vet minimum, you're just hoping to make a roster. I do think he's going to make the roster. And we know injuries happen. Like, he's probably going to play at some point this season. What he's hoping for, I would have to assume, is, hey, if he gets on the field, he plays. This is a better scheme for him to put up better tape and then maybe cash in next year in the offseason, because he's not an old player. Like, this is his 5th year in the NFL. He still has plenty of bankable years left in the league. I do think this is a really good spot for him, and I expect when he comes in there to be a average, or at least a not awful interior offensive lineman.
Well, I mean, it's the NFL. There's just not enough offensive linemen in the NFL. So the fact that he's not a starter this year doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be with some decent tapes if he gets a couple snaps in a blowout win or something like that. So, I think I expect him to turn this around, but still really nice to have a depth piece.
All right, so most teams are only going to sign 1 or 2 interior offensive lineman of the year. The Cowboys drafted 1 at 12. They signed Robert Jones, but that wasn't their only big signing. They signed Shaadiq Charles, a former LSU offensive lineman who was on, I believe, that championship LSU team. He was a 4th-round pick by the Commanders. He went to the Titans, out of the league for a year, and back in the NFL. The Cowboys took a shot on him, I believe, back in March. I don't know what to expect here because they have so much depth, but this sure feels like, hey, this is somebody who has a lot of talent. Let's bring him in and we'll see.
It's a Will McClay special. It's like a guy that was out of the league, had basically retired, I think, was it personal or health reasons? It was
like
not
that. Yeah.
It wasn't injury related. And was basically out of the league for, I think, 2 years or is it a season and a half or something like that. So it just decided he wants to come back, and who knows, like maybe he's not quite ready to play NFL football again. It's tough to spend a year out of the league and try to come back. But I think it's a completely cheap, look-see at a guy that was good enough to start in an NFL team and multiple times. It was, like you said, a college football champion. So just another guy to take a look at. And again, the Cowboys, everyone's always looking for offensive line help, and the Cowboys are in control of 3 guards that you may not necessarily need, that could be trade bait, that could go potentially
maybe more
start or be or at least a quality backup on another NFL team. So just add them to the pile of potential trade fodder eventually.
All right, so that's 5 interior offensive linemen that we've discussed. We've got more to get to, several more to get to. We will get to them next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, the one guy that I wanted to talk about here is Brock Hoffman, who played really well down the stretch last year. And honestly, I thought not only did he play well, but I thought he gave the offensive line some attitude and grittiness that they missed. I think he's the guy that I feel the worst about here. Not player wise, but because of the situation. Like I kind of thought going into the draft, he was penciled in to be a starter. And now I have no idea what to expect.
Well, and I have to ask too, who would you say is the backup center on this team?
Probably Hoffman.
I mean, I think outside of that, you're looking at Dakota Shepley, who I don't know that you're necessarily like.
We got him on the list, so we don't have to talk about it, but he's on our list.
Listen, no, I like him a lot, and I think for what he is, like he gave you some good snaps last year, but I don't know if you want to like pencil him as your, game day. I don't know if you want to give him a roster on game day necessarily consistently. So I think
listen, just real quick on Dakota Shepley.
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's an admirable NFL player.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got a role here.
Yeah. And so I guess my point being is that I think Hoffman has to move inside back to center full time. And he could be a swing guy, a game day guy that you could put in either spot if you need him to. But I think at his size, at this point, he's a smart player. He's shown that he can do some center stuff. He probably needs to move inside. And if not, I think, to me, he's the top of your, hey, does anybody need a guard? Does his own team need a guard? Because I
he's
really
the guy that I could see getting traded.
The contract's really, really obviously very, very tempting for a team that's looking to get cheap. And he put good tape out last year. So I think that, that it's for that either the Cowboys decide to keep him because he's probably their only true like solid backup at center, or they, look at their wealth at the interior offensive line and say, hey, let's flip this for a pick or maybe a starting running back.
Yeah, it just sucks because I like Brock Hoffman. And I think he's a good player. I don't know. I just don't know what happens to him. Like
Kareem rises to the top of the offensive line, though, Marcus. The truth of the matter is it's not like it's not like he's not going to get another opportunity. I don't think, because he did put out good tape and he is cheap. So maybe he doesn't play so much this year, but I do think he's played well enough that he should still get opportunities, I would say.
Yeah, probably. We should talk about TJ Bass because that's another guy I really like. I don't think he's quite as good as Brock Hoffman, which I can't believe that it changed that fast. But TJ Bass is somebody who, played tackle in college. I do think his body type fits this scheme a little bit better.
Yes.
But okay, you've got your starting 5 offensive linemen. You've got Robert Jones. You've got Hoffman. You're going to keep a tackle, whether it's Cornelius or Let's-Go or Akeem Adeniji or Awesome Richards or whoever. Like Nathan, you're going to have one of those guys. Like Nathan Thomas. I just don't see TJ Bass being active like he was the last couple of years. So if he's not somebody that's going to be on your active roster, and if he's your 3rd or 4th backup interior offensive lineman, maybe he's somebody they could move as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, I think a couple of these guys have, the undrafted guys specifically have very tradable contracts and are very appetizing to teams that, are still looking for maybe strong backups or maybe even starters at some spots, right? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think Bass would be traded as a starter because he just doesn't have enough of a repertoire to kind of, incur that. But I think that, that you can, if you're a desperate team and you're a zone team looking for a guard, like I think you could look at what Hoffman did last year and say, hey, this guy's at least worth kicking the tires on to see if he could be a starter if he got the chance full time.
We should also mention Nate Thomas and Akeem Adeniji, who we talked about on Wednesday's show. Those are both guys that have guard experience. I mean, Nate Thomas moved to guard last year. A lot of Adenji's snaps have been at guard. Those are just 2 more names. So this is such a crowded position. Like to me, it feels like we still have 1 or 2 moves that are going to happen here before we get to week 1.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it definitely feels like at this point they are hoarding interior offensive linemen. There's no way they're keeping all these guys, especially since, like you said, there are several of these tackles who have guard flexibility, which means that, tackle's the more valuable position. So, like, if the question is, like, are you going to keep a guard only? Or let me put it like this. Are you going to game day roster a guard backup only? or this tackle guard who can play both spots just as well as you can play guard. It's like not even a question. So yeah, I think guys like TJ Bass, like, even though I think he's solid as a backup guard and functioning in that role, without being able to play inside at center or outside at tackle, just being a guard only, you're in a kind of a tough spot because it makes it hard to get you onto the game day roster.
Again, this could be big brain to just ignore this, but is there any chance that they're just hoarding these guards with the idea that, like, hey, if Terrence Steele doesn't get better in 2025, we could kick out whether it's Tyler Guyton or Tyler Smith and then insert whoever, Robert Jones, Brock Hoffman. And that's the way that we kind of start to save money on our offensive line a little bit, but keep some of our guard depth? Or is it simply just like, hey, they like all these guys and they are going to try to keep as many as they can?
Both. Yeah, I think you are open to all the possibilities. I think they've thought about, they know that obviously that Tyler Smith has flexibility there. I'm sure that's part of their calculus is, hey, let's load up on guards in case our tackle solution is our guard. So yeah, I think they're just having a lot of guards gives this particular group of players that they have a lot of flexibility for how they want to assemble the roster.
Say it's a fun unit. I cannot wait to see how they perform in the preseason and into the regular season. Like we said, this should be one of their strongest strengths. If it's not, it's probably going to be a problem this year for the Cowboys. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your holiday weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.